Instead of congratulating him, Jimmy Fallon even made a shocking statement during the live broadcast that made BTS's JIN's face instantly turn tense. What exactly was going on behind the scenes until HYB's crew stepped in and reprimanded Jimmy live? Why can't JIN's reaction be shown to the public? Is this just a joke, or is there something deeper? Isn't this supposed to be a special night for JIN? Isn't a debut appearance after returning from his military service worth celebrating with a smile and a warm welcome? But the reality is exactly the opposite. Behind the lavish stage and the gleaming camera glare, something was happening that night. An event that was never re-aired and was never officially commented on by anyone from HYB. However, words cannot be taken back. And the one Jimmy Fallon threw that night, really too shocking to be considered a joke. The question is, why did Jimmy Fallon, a seasoned host, known for being friendly and good at breaking the ice, instead choose to say something that made the genie tense up and the entire HYB crew react instantly? Is this part of the script? Or has Jimmy crossed the line by opening something that should have remained hidden from the public? May 21st, 2025 was supposed to be a historic date for the ARMY. After a long wait for JIN's visual presence, voice, and charisma, her first appearance on The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon was a celebration that should have been happy. JIN stepped onto the stage elegantly, wearing his trademark dark suit, perfectly styled hair, and an aura that never faded despite a nearly 2-year vacuum. However, none of the soldiers watching that night could have predicted how the broadcast would turn in a matter of seconds, and it all started with one hilarious joke. Jimmy started off by welcoming JIN as usual, calling him worldwide handsome, and even throwing in some praise for JIN's comeback, which was touted as a reminder of BTS light that hasn't gone out yet. But then his tone changed. An ambiguous expression flashed across his face before he added, "It's funny how someone comes back from the military and still looks like he hasn't worked a day." The whole studio laughed. At first glance, it seems ordinary. But something is different. JIN's face froze for a moment. It wasn't that he took offense at the physical comment. JIN wasn't one to be easily provoked about it. But that's not the point. Jimmy's sentence has a deeper context. A few seconds after the sentence was said, the screen shifted. Sudden impressions moved to advertising. A very unusual transition for a live event as big as The Tonight Show. What happens when the ad appears? HYB's crew reportedly docked directly with Jimmy. One of the internal sources revealed that the Korean team objected in an unusual tone. Jimmy was seen turning his head several times towards the crew, then towards JIN, who was still sitting still, apparently trying to hide something from his face. His reaction not aired. Even in the recap video on the show's official YouTube, the part is subtly cut. But the ARMY who watched the live broadcast had recordings and memories that could not be erased. The question is, what does Jimmy mean? Why did the remark imply such a sensitive thing to JIN that HYB's team reacted so quickly? And the most disturbing, why does Jimmy look panicked after laughing? Isn't that a joke? Or does Jimmy know something that shouldn't have been made public? Some speculation began to emerge. It has been suggested that JIN experienced severe psychological distress during his time in the military, and that his comeback was accelerated by HYB despite JIN's personal physician's suggestion of a delay. Jimmy's line about not looking like it ever worked becomes a bitter irony when linked to the rumor. Moreover, if it is true that JIN keeps something that is never shared publicly, whether it is about his health, his emotions, or his mental state. Even one of the audio crew in the studio reportedly said, "We thought there would be a break in the usual humor." But when JIN's face didn't change and Jimmy continued to laugh, the mood instantly changed. Producers began to panic. That one sentence is enough to make us wonder, did Jimmy unknowingly leak something that big corporations like HYB have been hiding all along? After the segment, Jimmy tried to improve the atmosphere. He praised JIN's latest single, calling it a soothing and deeply personal song, but none of ARMY could erase the stiff expression from JIN's face. Even when the camera panned the laughing genie, there was a flash in her eyes, not anger, not heartache, but like someone who just decided to no longer hide the wound. What happens behind the scenes after the show is over? Some sources said that JIN refused to give additional interviews and immediately left the studio in a black car that was not listed in HYB's official vehicle list. Reports from fans who were outside the building said that Jin's face appeared blank and looked down continuously, different from the confident aura he was used to showing on camera. The most surprising thing was when rumors appeared that Jimmy apologized directly to HYB's manager, not to JIN. The question is, why isn't the apology addressed to the genie directly? Did their relationship break down in an instant? And more importantly, what did Jimmy personally say in the waiting room after the broadcast was over, which made a female HYB staffer cry and leave the room? The story doesn't end at the studio. A few days after that airing, JIN was absent from several promotional schedules. HYB only said that JIN is in the post-military rhythm adjustment of activities. But the public knew something was wrong. The army can feel it. There's tension in the air. And when JIN posted a short message on Weverse, "Sometimes silence is better than explaining everything," millions of fans suddenly fell silent. I asked this JIN's form of disappointment. Is there something bigger going on behind the scenes between HYB and the foreign media? And were Jimmy's comments that night just the tip of the iceberg of the pressure that JIN had been feeling in silence all this time? One thing's for sure. The unaired genie's reaction has been the biggest mystery since her comeback. Jimmy Fallon has yet to make an official statement. HYB nodded as well. But the public is not stupid. They know when someone is holding a wound behind a smile. And that night, in a studio full of lights and cheers, there was one broken smile, one that not even the best camera could hide. Army. Now it's your turn to ask, is JIN being hurt by the system that is supposed to protect him? Are we only seeing the surface of a much deeper drama? Dan. If JIN chooses silence, will we let his inner voice be buried just like that? When the studio was slowly quiet and the stage lights began to be turned off one by one, something much darker than the shadow in the corner of the room was left behind. An atmosphere that seemed to hang in the air. It's like an unfinished sentence. It's like a wound that hasn't closed. After the segment was cut for the commercial, one camera caught JIN briefly talking to someone from his team. His hands were visibly shaking. Although no audio was leaked, JIN's body gestures clearly showed that he was not okay. A female crew member, named Jumi, not her real name, is seen hurriedly retrieving something from JIN's backpack, allegedly some sort of essential oil or personal inhaler she used to use when panic attacks struck. But I asked, this just a coincidence? Or did Jimmy's sentence trigger something that JIN had managed to hide all this time? More surprisingly, some people backstage claimed to hear Jimmy say, "I thought we agreed on the joke, didn't HYB approve this?" A rhetorical question that seems to blame the management. But if indeed the joke was approved in advance, why did HYB react so violently after the words came out of her mouth? One theory is growing wildly in international army circles. A bold theory that Jimmy Fallon had actually gotten a special briefing before the show, but he intentionally modified the script of the joke to be more sarcastic and ambiguous. That he wanted to tease JIN to be more spontaneous on American TV. But the opposite happened. JIN is closed. His face froze. The camera doesn't seem to hold up much longer. I asked Jimmy, too confident that the genie will keep smiling as usual? Or did he unconsciously touch the deepest wounds of an idol who had struggled for years not to show weakness? We must remember, JIN is not just a singer. He was someone who had just returned from a different reality, a reality of the military, the pressure, and the silent barracks that knew no fan cheers. He didn't come back as the same person he was when he left. And when he was greeted with a joke that, whether intentional or not, hurt his efforts, of course the wound cannot be underestimated. Shortly after the event ended, the hashtag #ProtectJIN immediately became trending on Twitter and Weverse. Armies from all over the world unite, not with anger, but with grief. They saw something in JIN's eyes that night. Something that cannot be explained in words. Something even more painful than silence. Behind the scenes, rumor has it that one of HYB's senior managers had an argument with the show's producer Jimmy Fallon's team. One insider said, "It wasn't just a joke. It was about the timing, the tone, and the look on Jimmy's face after he said it. He wasn't just laughing, he was looking for a reaction. And what he got was something none of us were ready for." This statement seems to open a new chapter of this controversy. Is it true that Jimmy is testing the genie? Is it true that this is some kind of media experiment to see how a South Korean idol adapts to the more outspoken American Toksao culture? But what was most shocking was the backstage CCTV footage that was leaked to 3 days after the live broadcast incident. JIN's entire schedule was suddenly cancelled, without warning, without an official reason. Even BTS and HYB's official social media accounts did not provide updates. JIN, who was supposed to appear in a special promotional segment for his long-awaited solo album, suddenly